Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Alliance Against Seclusion and Restraint, our live series that we do as a Facebook Live and YouTube and also as an audio podcast. We have a very exciting program today. It's kind of an unusual day for us. We're usually here on Thursday. We're here this week on Tuesday with a very special event. Let me tell you a little bit about the Alliance before we get started. As I mentioned, my name is Guy Stevens. I'm the founder and executive director of the Alliance. Started the Alliance a little over 2 years ago to bring people together to reduce and eliminate practices like restraint and seclusion in schools across the nation. Our mission is to educate the public and connect people together that are interested in changing minds, laws, policies, and practices so that things like restraint and seclusion are reduced and eliminated. Our vision is to see safer schools for students, teachers, and staff. We've got a really, really special event today I'm very excited about. We often have guests in, and today not only do we have some amazing guests, but we also have administrators, teachers, and students from a school that we're going to be talking to. So I'm going to begin by introducing Dr. Laurie Desautels. So let me go ahead and bring Laurie up here. Laurie is an assistant professor at Butler University and teaches a program in Applied Educational Neuroscience, which is really getting into kind of how the brain works and working with teachers and students to understand kind of the connection between the way the body and brain work together. Laurie has written several amazing books. One of my favorite books is a book called Connection Over Compliance. You've probably heard me recommend that before on the Alliance. It's an amazing book. Not to mention, the title alone has always just really resonated with me because it's so important in kind of changing the way that we're working with and supporting kids. And of course, Laurie has also a background in teaching and is out in the classroom, well, not today as we speak, but is out in the classroom now working with students and teachers and doing some really amazing work. So Laurie, really excited to have you here today. I'm sure I left some things out in the introduction, but I know we have a lot on tap for today. So welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Oh, Guy, thank you so much for this event today. I'm so excited. As I was sharing and thinking about this last night, we get to hear from our kids today, and we get to hear from educators who are moving through this pandemic time. And there's been, it's you and I talked about this. It's been the most challenging year for parents, for students, for staff. There really are no words. And I feel so honored to sit beside the school that you will meet today and to participate in their classrooms, especially this year, with protocols that we never imagined in the past. So thank you so much for having all of us today, and I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited as well. And, one of the things I love about the work that you do is it really is about helping teachers and educators to work with and better support kids that may be having difficulty, kids that have a trauma background, kids with disabilities, kids with a whole, wide variety of situations. And, we put that in the context of the pandemic. It's even more critical today than ever before, but this work is always important. It's always important to figure out how can we better support kids? How can we move away from, traumatizing already traumatized children and really support them? So the work is absolutely amazing. And I'm really excited. And, one of the questions that, commonly comes up is when you talk about, doing things to better support kids or what can we do? What do solutions look like? And one of the things that really excites me about this discussion today is this is it. This is one of those solutions. This is one of the things that we can do to help better support kids. And I've always appreciated your books, how much detail goes into here are actual things you can do in strategies. So really excited to hear about those in the classroom. So let's not wait anymore. Let's introduce our staff that we have joining us first. And they can tell us more. We're going to be learning about Harrison Hill Elementary. So let me begin by bringing up our school principal, who is Natalie Stewart. And Natalie, welcome and thanks for joining us. I'm also going to bring up here Tiasha Logan, and I'm going to get the last name wrong here, Oglesby. Hopefully I'll be close. And so welcome you both. I know you're both there from our Harrison Hill Elementary in the Lawrence Township of Indianapolis. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sharing not only your time, but your students and your teachers and what you're doing there. We're really excited about the work that's going on. So welcome, and then we'll get into having you tell us more about who you are and what you do. So Natalie, maybe we can start with you, and you can tell us a little bit about your role and about Harrison Hill Elementary.
Thank you so much for having us. What an honor to be with you and to meet you. And of course, Dr. Laurie, thank you, because we owe you so much. So as you had mentioned, my name is Natalie Stewart. I'm the proud principal of Harrison Hill. And we had an extraordinary opportunity this year to work with Dr. Laurie. I've been fortunate enough to know Dr. Laurie for years now, as she's a Lawrence Township resident. And I've had the opportunity to see her speak throughout the years and have just always been enamored with her work. And, you know, how can you not love Dr. Laurie? So we were given a unique opportunity to have her come and work with our staff this year. And I think, as you alluded to in the beginning, what a year. I mean, we have never started a school year with so many unknowns, you know, truly, for our staff, for our students, everything that everybody had been through since March of last year. Students hadn't been to school in 5 months. Students had watched family members become ill. Some, unfortunately, had watched family members pass away. There was anxiety surrounding all of us. And so I think coming together to begin a school year, we had never felt like we needed Dr. Laurie more. Because then you put on top of that other traumas, you know, that people come to school with every day, students and adults. And so what a way for us to begin with Dr. Laurie assuring us that we would have some tools. And so I think today you're going to have an opportunity to hear from our staff how they've been impacted, of course, from our teachers and all that they've learned in their toolbox, but hearing from the students, it's inspiring. And I'm just so proud of the work that they've been able to do this year. So they'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But I wanted to talk a little bit about our setup, because I think one of the amazing things about Dr. Laurie, and when I talk to the kids, I say, you guys, she's famous. She travels all over the country and people just love listening to her, but she's in the classrooms. And I just think that that is such an extraordinary way for her to be so connected, because there are days when she comes out and she's like, wow, you know, she truly would uplift our entire staff because she knew what teachers were going through, you know. And I think we live in a world today where so many people don't really understand what it's like, you know, all the trials and tribulations of what we've been through this year. So remarkable that she has walked with us on this journey. So we began the school year with her talking with our staff, and I think just preparing them for some of the things that our students were going to be walking in with this year. And, you know, I think so many times in education, we do this thing where we say, build relationships with kids, make connections, but we don't really get to the how. And Dr. Laurie has given us toolbox and tools and so many things to get in there and really work with. So the things that we're going to talk about today, it's not a scripted program. You know, it's not about here you go and it's all better. It's about really taking some strategies and diving in and integrating them throughout your entire day. And that's what our teachers are working on doing. Is it perfect? No. Absolutely not, but it's a start, and we're just really scratching that surface on getting to some things that are just so critical and so important, because we know that what we want in the morning is for everybody's basic needs to be met, and then we want their brains to be ready to learn. And what we know is that today, that's not how everybody comes to school, adults included, right? So we've been given some very specific tools and strategies for how to recognize that. And I think for me as a building leader, being able to say to my staff, it's okay, you know, to know that maybe you're not ready to begin your day, but what's our plan to do that? And so recognizing what are the triggers that you have? What are some things that really are making you not regulated? Because before you step into a classroom, all of those things need to be right for you. And once we've come to that understanding and self-awareness, we've really been able to dig in to learn how to do that with kids. And that's the impact that I see when I go in for classroom observations. I see how those changes are coming through in student conversation, in student learning. So that's when you know that that work is truly integrated. It's not about what you do for the first 10 minutes of the day or 20 minutes here. It's that that's the climate and culture of how we're going to do business at Harrison Hill. And so that's really the journey that we're starting on. And I mean, of course, we'd love to keep Dr. Laurie forever. But, you know, we're just hoping that the model will continue. We have some people that are in leadership roles in our building, and so they get to go into other classrooms and help facilitate learning for other teachers and other classrooms. And that's how we've been able to see our work really multiply.
That's fantastic. And the success that you're having with this, I mean, although I'm sure you'll have to give up Dr. Laurie at some point.
No.
The fact that this can be another model for people that are out there trying to figure out how do we, work with some of the difficulties that we have or the challenges that we have. How do we address the impact of trauma? How do we better support our students, our teachers, and our staff? So that's really great. And one of the things that you said that really stuck with me, because I've had many conversations with Laurie, and the one thing that really sticks with me about her approach is that she has done a tremendous amount of research, and of course the books are fantastic, but she is learning just as much as the students, I think, sometimes when she's in the classroom. And I love how adaptable the approach is. And talking to Laurie Kirkland as well recently, it's just really amazing. It's not just a matter of we have this finite expertise here. It's how can we evolve? How can we learn more? And it sounds like you're able to benefit both from that kind of approach.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, and just being able to watch her engage. And, one of the things that I think has been a challenge for us all this year is going from an in-person setting to a virtual setting and back again. And Dr. Laurie's strategies have no boundaries. Watching her stand in front of a big giant Zoom is just as engaging as if she were in person. And she really wanted to work with classes that were virtual, so that she could show teachers this is possible. We do build connection. We do build those strong relationships, even if we're not in the same room. And that's been very powerful.
You're speaking my language, relationship, right? So Tiasha, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience working with Dr. Laurie and kind of your role in all of this as well?
Yeah, thank you. So Tiasha Oglesby, assistant principal at Harrison Hill, proud assistant principal. I've learned so much, and I think that's a great way to say it. And I like to see Dr. Laurie's face when you said that she's learning so much along the students, because I think that's kind of my expression exactly, is that there's so much learning that happens as you're applying it and just like really expanding and shifting your own thinking, that you're really not even thinking about it as like another thing to do, because you're learning alongside them. So it's just kind of like Stuart said, a way of how we just do business now. And I think it's a mindfulness and an awareness in general with this framework. And that when you realize that you are coming from just approaching it from such a different aspect that you've ever maybe, like for assistant principal, approached discipline, then that just mind shift alone is so powerful. So I think that's a huge piece of it. One of the huge takeaways that I've been able to really apply in my position this year is consequences over experiences. And it's probably my favorite part so far. Like, it really has shifted the way I do things and the way I assign, reactions to certain behaviors, and just how I coach teachers to kind of process these consequences or experiences with them. And I really thinking about regulation and the brain state and sensations, and really honoring those, and then providing students with experiences for them to be successful. Traditional punishment, how we've done it, or just in the past, it truly hasn't changed many patterns. We really haven't seen that over time really make drastic impact. But when we really think about providing them experiences, we're seeing some true changes for sure. So for instance, instead of a student being suspended or something like that, like how about we partner them with a younger student and see if that, empowers them to want to invest in the building. Instead of creating Saturday school, let's try a basketball league and see if we could create this sense of community, and this sense of belonging, and this, this place of peace for students, which is really, really making a difference. We're really having a culture shift here. I think another huge thing that I've been able to take away is not only the student brain state, which is so key, but also the teacher brain state, and being aware of that. My own brain state, one, as a building leader, first of all, going into some very heavy situations or crisis or high need situations, and being able to regulate myself first before coming into that, so that I can have a greater impact in those situations. But I also think when it's like time to co-regulate, when those heated situations, those heightened moments, and being able to come alongside adults and the student and being able to co-regulate together, versus just taking action immediately, not really getting the whole story, but really let's try to pay attention to the sensations we're both feeling and recognize the brain state we're both at, and then make a decision. Is right now the best time to determine what's best for kids? Or do we need to come back to it? Or do we need to get a drink of water? Or do we need to get a peppermint? Or things like that, and then let's make some sound decisions on what's best for kids versus these emotional decisions, which has seemed to be just, helping in general in so many different ways. I think that prioritizing yourself and allowing teachers to take a moment to prioritize how they feel above everything else and just recognizing that before taking some steps forward has been more impactful for sure. And the same thing with children. Before, seclusion or restraint, thinking about regulation first and thinking about the sensations that they're feeling first and trying to get them to be just in a calm state. Because knowing that they're not listening to you anyway, they don't hear you anyway, they probably don't even see you or feel you near. So you're really kind of wasting your time. And I think that helps adults realize right now is poor time for that. So, and it's not even, it's useless, So I think that regulation in those moments and making that the priority and thinking of regulation as a safety measure versus seclusion and restraint and just trying to get regulated first. And then let's figure out how we can get safe, which kind of tends to come hand in hand. And then I would say our data really shows, which I'm excited to share with our staff this week when Dr. Laurie comes for our last meeting for the year, really shows. And now there's a lot of things. There's virtual learning that's taking place. There's, students weren't here the whole time. We have a new behavior mentor. There's a lot of things to consider, but the costs to the office are significantly down, like drastically, like more than cut in half, because I think it's an awareness. And I really think that's it. It's, I think that's the start to this, is that adults and students are aware of what's happening and they're able to make some solid decisions on how to regulate themselves in order to be productive throughout the day. So that's been very helpful. Just like I said, that mindfulness, that awareness of the brain and body state. And then, I'm excited about kind of our next steps about now that we're aware and we understand the why, applying more of those strategies.
Yeah, such a key point that oftentimes the idea is that only the kid needs a change, but our own reflection on our own brain state is so important to all of these situations. And one of the things that you said that really resonated with me, I was just kind of reflecting on Laurie's book and thinking about one of the things that stuck out to me in that book is when she talked about discipline and talked about that coming from the root word kind of decycle, to teach, and somehow we've gotten away from that. We've thought about discipline as just negative consequence, and you did a great job of kind of framing that as well, and kind of talking about how your mindset kind of shifted and you're trying to teach and support. That's really amazing. The excitement that you both have about this work is just really, you can feel it in the air, and it's really great. I have a couple questions that I want to ask you, and I know I'm looking down in the lower part of my monitor where I actually see a classroom of kids waiting for us as well, which is really exciting. But I have a couple quick questions for you, and I'll take the first one, Natalie, to you. If you were the proverbial elevators pitch, so if you were in an elevator with another school administrator that said to you, well, tell me all about this program you're doing, what's your short pitch on what this is and why you think it's important? What would you tell somebody that was interested in kind of exploring this approach?
I think that it's, first of all, not a program, but a framework for really understanding the brain, reactions, feelings, and emotions. And I would probably tell a lot of stories because I think, stories speak to all of us about the impact that these strategies have had on kids. Or I would have them watch this because you're going to hear a lot of those. And when you see when kids are regulating themselves, right there, it speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So one of the things I heard from you, Tiasha, and this doesn't surprise me, was you kind of talked about the impact. And one of the things that's really important here is the impact beyond just the obvious, meaning that, sometimes people think, well, you're just doing something that maybe impacts the kids. But really, when you begin to do this and implement this kind of framework, you're making benefit for the teachers. You're reducing potentially the calls to the office, but there's also a mindset to change too, because certainly I've worked with a lot of different educators in different situations, and sometimes the call is just for consequence. Well, we need more consequence. We
Mhm.
need to be able to send them to the administration and have them expelled, suspended, whatever the case may be. But of course, that doesn't really help us in the end. It's pushing kids into the criminal justice system and getting other things happening. But you really seem to kind of to get that. But how do you work to or I know I've talked to some of your teachers, and I know that they're along this journey and fully supportive. But how do you help people to kind of reframe or see things through a different lens that may initially be skeptical or think, well, gee, I don't know how this is going to work. We really need more discipline, or we need more of this. How do you address that kind of thing?
Yeah, great question. I think, really when it's in those situations when we might not be on the same page per se, is really just taking the time to break down what happened and the behavior that occurred and what is the desired outcome that we're really going for. And maybe looking at past experiences and patterns and say, well, when we suspended it before, was that what was best? Did we change the behavior? Well, no, we're still here. We're right back here right now, right? So then it kind of proves itself right now. So there's no risk that we're taking by trying something different when what we're doing right now isn't working and it's not truly changing those large patterns. And like you said, things like, the justice system, systematic racism. And if we're really truly going to try that, then if we're so charged up, then it's worth taking a risk and it's worth trying something different. And I think really making the why clear for the adult in the situation is important every time, and just kind of explaining so what are they communicating that they need? And I think that's the main thing, is that we have to come from a level of providers, of that back to what you said about discipline means to teach. So this is a teaching opportunity. This is a learning opportunity right now. So how can we capitalize on this learning opportunity just like we would if it was academics or, instruction? The same thing here. How can we capitalize in this moment to create true change? And I think that's when when we start really thinking about it differently and thinking about truly as a teaching opportunity to create true change, we realize that we got to get creative and we got to try some different things. And it's worth honoring the brain state in order to really, like I said, to make a difference instead of just continuing to recycle that thing that's like insanity of just doing the same thing over and over again. That's not producing results and only increasing frustration. So I think when teachers are really, or adults are really bought into wanting to see change and you come to the table as a problem solver, then we can definitely handle it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what happens when you actually get kids involved in solving problems, right? When you collaborate with kids and you partner with kids and you teach them about their brains and how they can kind of understand what they're feeling and what they're going through. Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely amazing work that you guys are doing. I'm really excited to see where you're going.
And I think that's a great point about giving kids the voice, and I think bringing the kids in more in those consequences or those experiences and just kind of letting the students speak from their own experience is also helpful for the teacher to kind of realize that this is what they need. They're asking for help in a very unique way sometimes, but they're definitely asking for help.
Right. Well, it's easy to say behavior is communication, but as you begin to understand more of it and not just look beyond, the visible behaviors, but try to understand what's going on underneath the surface. And, I mean, what you mentioned about kind of the understanding of the brain, when I started this work a couple of years ago, I didn't have a whole lot of understanding about the brain and trauma and how any of that worked. But the very simple things you can learn about understanding that when a kid is becoming dysregulated and going into a fight or flight mode and working from their amygdala, that they're no longer, as you mentioned earlier, they're no longer communicating with their frontal cortex. Their ear canals are tightening. They're not listening yet. Often there's that compliance-based approach, which is things end up being a battle of wills when a kid's not even able to listen or process at that point. So, that to me is such an important lesson of, having everyone understand how the brain works. It seems like so much is avoidable when you begin to understand, oh, gee, they're maybe they're hypervigilant or maybe they're dysregulated. And just knowing that changes the approach that you take, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I see a very excited room full of kids and teachers, and I definitely want to start moving in that direction. But is there anything else you wanted to add before we do that?
No, I don't think so. Just thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited about it. I mean, we didn't make a lot of effort to try to offer educational programming for teachers and administrators and parents and self advocates and others to get to these better ways, because one school at a time where we can get people doing better practices, we're making huge differences. So really appreciate you both being willing to come on board. Natalie, any other thoughts before we move into bringing the kids in?
I think once you hear from the kids and once you see the impact this has had on them, because these are skills that are going to impact the rest of their lives. And I think that's the exciting thing. They are internalizing these strategies and they are problem solving for themselves in ways that we never could have dreamed. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right, sounds good. And Laurie, anything to add before we bring the kids in?
Well, just that it is the leadership. So these two brilliant leaders that we've been listening to, that's what's making this work. And relationships were a priority when I got to Harrison Hill. So, I want to give credit where credit is due. There are many adults in this building that work hard every day. I think of Tammy, I think of Neil, I think of Mr. Wallace, I think of all the staff. I mean, this is a community of educators that were ready for this framework. So it's because of Tiasha and Natalie that it's really just growing and developing, and will continue to do so. This will be sustainable.
Absolutely. That's a really great point, because I often talk to parents and even teachers that reach out that want to impact some sort of change, but getting that buy-in at the top, getting the leadership behind a program. You can bring in all the training in the world, but if the leadership is not bought into the philosophy, the ideas, it won't last. And it's so important to have that. And so really appreciate both of you coming on to share that, because that kind of enthusiasm, I think, is hopefully something that other people will be inspired by. So thank you so much for that. Natalie and Tiasha, did you want to stick around while we bring the kids up, or okay?
Yes,
great.
we'd love to.
All right, and we're bringing on more people than I brought on before, so we'll see how this all works.
Okay.
All right, let me.
If you want to put us backstage, that's fine too.
All right, sounds good. So we now have a classroom, and I see kids waving. And Laurie, do you want to do the introductions for us?
Oh my goodness. So we have 3rd and 4th grade, brilliant students and their fabulous teachers. We have Laurie Kirkland with Zamai, and we have Emily Ross with Tristan and Iviana. Yay!
All right, fantastic. So let me just start here. Laurie Kirkland. Now that I have two Lauries here, my two favorite Lauries, of course. Laurie, it's great to see you again. I really enjoyed talking to you just a few weeks back. So thanks for joining us, Laurie.
Hi there. Can you hear us?
Absolutely, we sure can. So Laurie, I know we interviewed you recently and you talked a little bit about the work that you've been doing with Laurie Desautels. Can you tell us a little bit more and how things are going? And I know you're there today with students, and I know we're at school, so we've got to have our mask on, but tell us a little bit about your experience. And then I'm really eager to talk to Zamai.
It is going well. And just again, as we have talked about all of the strategies that Laurie has helped as far as the teachers, us with our own regulating our own brain state, but then also the students. And especially this time of year with 3rd grade, I don't know how it is around other states, but 3rd grade, they take 2 different standardized tests. There's a lot of testing going on, and it can be very stressful. And the strategies that she has shown the kids and myself have been very beneficial. We had a day, last week, where we had a true heart-to-heart with the whole class, because there have been some things going on, and my class was able to just verbalize independently with each other and apologize, and to help heal and to recover some relationships, repair some relationships with each other, specific apologies for things that had happened. Found out that there's been some things that students have been holding on to from 2nd grade. They were able to even put it into words and talk about it, and just to repair a lot of those relationships and use a lot of those focused attention strategies. and some of those brain intervals to keep it going as we go through the testing and the stress. And it just kind of built up, and we all had to have a discussion about it, and it was wonderful. This one right here, too, she even shared, and I'll let her share, but she talked and was very honest about it, and also the way that the other children are open and listen to each other. It's huge what Lori has done and the strategies that she's helped us with, and the kids understanding how their brains work and how it affects and impacts their bodies.
And it's huge what you're doing. Laurie, you're amazing. I had the privilege to interview you recently, and it's amazing, what an impact this can have in the classroom. So if you would you introduce your student Zamai to us?
Yes, this is Zamai Sanders, and she has been one of the student gurus. She has taken Dr. Laurie's work, and she's even gone down to second grade and helped Dr. Laurie model some strategies with them. So I'll let Zamai kind of take it away and maybe talk about what is your favorite focused attention practice, or what is something that you've learned. What's been the biggest thing that you've learned from our work with Dr. Laurie?
What I have learned
And you can take that up. I'll put mine on.
What I have learned from Dr. Laurie is how to keep yourself calm when there's something really bad. Like say if somebody that you were sitting by at your desk and somebody just keeps doing stuff and makes you really mad. So if that person makes you really mad, Dr. Laurie told us to just do a focus attention practice. This one is my favorite one. So you push your hand up and then you fold the other half of your hand and then you keep doing that. So it's gonna calm you down. And the one thing I like about this is because you have to look at your hand to make sure you're doing it the right way, or else it's gonna just make you mad and you just gonna be like this instead of looking at your hands to make sure you're doing it the right way and then take your the other person doing it. And if they keep on doing it, you go to Miss Kirkland and you ask her, can you either move like that or can you tell that person to stop because if they keep touching my desk, please.
So when you're doing this, you're focusing more on this than what on your neighbor and what's getting you upset, and going, what does that push you to? What part of your brain?
My
If you keep focusing, but if not,
you're gonna go to your amygdala.
To your amygdala. And where's your amygdala?
Right here.
Is that the prefrontal or is that the amygdala? The amygdala.
No, the amygdala is right.
Okay.
This is
And Zamai, what happens when your amygdala gets upset? What happens then?
It makes you really mad and it makes you want to go off on everybody. But instead, you were trying to keep that inside and you try to go back to the prefrontal cortex and go back to what you were working with.
You're amazing. You're amazing, Zamai. This is great. You know more about the brain than most adults do, and that's really incredible. So what grade are you in?
I'm in third grade.
Third grade, and you've been helping some of the younger kids learn as well.
Yes.
Teaching them how to use some of those practices.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really great. So aside from that practice, what do you like best about learning about the brain?
When Dr. Laurie comes in and she teaches us new brain intervals and practice attention so we can do stuff say I'm gonna use Miss Kirkland as an example. I'm trying to tell Miss Kirkland something. She has a handful of kids coming up to
Girl,
her.
preach it. Pull that down. Say it louder. Go ahead.
Everybody keeps coming up to her and I keep tapping her. So that's making Miss Kirkland mad and making her go to her and making her one. But instead she just
That's great.
Maya, that honey, thank you. That was just awesome.
That's amazing.
Yes.
So, Zamai, let me ask you just a real general question. Any idea what you want to do when you grow up?
When I grow up, so I don't get to do this and I do, I'll be okay with it. But I want to be a baker because that's two of my favorite things: baking cakes and also artwork. I love artwork, and I also like baking. For Mother's Day, I baked my grandma a Mother's Day cake with the Mother's Day word on it, and then it had little rose petals around it.
Oh, that's great. The great thing about baking and art is you can bring them together and make really amazing cakes. My wife used to make cakes that look like puppy dogs and giraffes and all sorts of neat things. So you can take a class and learn how to decorate cakes. That's a lot of fun.
But one thing about baking is when you bake, you want to show your passion, but you don't want to show too much because the gooder you get means the slower you have to go. So if you go fast, that means you're not really working hard on what you're really trying to push yourself forward to doing. Instead, you gotta take your time to do this instead of being like, oh my god, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta push it. Oh my god,
Like you have too many orders.
yeah.
You want to take your time.
But you want to take your time because you know you're not going to be able to get it doing in time or all in one day. So you might want to say, I'll do your cake, but I have to do some other cake. So would you mind if it be a little late?
And you want to be putting out your best product. So you want to take your time.
Also, one thing my mama taught me about baking is you can tell sugar from salt by how you hold it. You don't have to look at the bag or nothing. You can tell sugar from salt.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you might even need to, if you become a baker, you might even need to use your brain breaks while you're baking, because you might need to, instead of just rushing, you might need to take a break and kind of refocus, right? So these things might help you later. So let's get to talking to Ms. Ross. If you could tell us, or Laurie, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No. You were fine.
Okay.
Laurie, the other Laurie, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Yeah, let's keep going with the kids.
All right, sounds good. So, Ms. Ross, if you would introduce yourself and tell us about your class and maybe how you got introduced to Dr. Laurie and what you're doing in your classroom with your kids.
So I'm a fourth grade teacher here at Harrison Hill. This is my 6th year teaching. With me today, I have Tristan and Iviana, 2 students who, when Dr. Laurie joined us in that second week in August, have really taken what she has taught us to heart. The biggest thing that I think I've taken from our journey together is creating this common language in our classroom about the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex and those focused attention practice. And in creating this common language, we've created this safe place. And so in creating that safe place, kids are trusting each other more. They're talking about things that are deep and personal to them, and they're coming, just kind of to me on a deeper level than years past. So this community that we have built together through the work with Dr. Laurie has been the most transformative thing in my classroom. Tristan is with me today because he has shown these focused attention practices at home and has even sent videos to myself and Dr. Laurie doing them with his mom and showing somebody else. And Iviana is here today because she loves to take a focused attention practice and put a little spin on it and make it her own and try and teach it to other people. And she also asks some of the most amazing questions that I would never even think to ask. Dr. Laurie is here. So these 2 students have really taken what they have learned to heart and are practicing it almost daily.
That's fantastic. So great to meet you, and let's learn a little bit more from your students. So Idiana, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what you like about learning about the brain? And I'm really interested in hearing how you have taken some ideas about practices and made them your own. So can you tell us a little bit about first why you're interested in all this and interested in learning about your brain?
I'm interested in learning about my brain because my brain is like a important thing to me. And so when I hit my head, I really just sit down and relax and do a focused attention practice. And when I do a focused attention practice and I turn it into my own to kind of spice it up for the whole class to like practice it. And what's the other question? Oh, and my teacher, Ms. Ross, so we had an awareness girl in our class, and it would teach us, so she had us rip it apart and made us see how we feel about like ripping it apart and how awareness felt if it was a real person. And then she had us go around and like glue a piece back together, but she didn't make us have to rip a piece if we didn't have to, if we didn't want to.
So we took awareness and created it into a figure, and to help us find more awareness within the classroom. So she's talking about a particular activity we did to help us find more awareness, to help us get back to that focusing. Can you show him one that you have kind of made your own? Yeah.
So my class, we do a focus attention practice, Toko Lala, but I did one on the table, and my whole class taught it, and I actually got to present it in front of another 4th grade class.
Oh, wow.
This is one we do normally standing, but she made it sitting. Do you want to show them real fast on the table?
Okay. Choco Lala, Choco Dead, Choco La, Choco Dead, Choco La.
Nice job.
That's awesome. That's great. So have you taught these things to other people aside from people at school? I mean, have you shown these things to friends or other people?
Yeah, I have taught it to lots of family members. I actually haven't told anybody this, but I flew to Chicago to show my great grandma a focus attention practice.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Nice.
Can you think of a situation where knowing a focused attention practice has helped you? Maybe something was going wrong or upsetting you and you've been able to use that?
Like, when I get mad, like, because we have negative people in our class, so Ms. Ross is actually teaching a group or teaching in front of the class, I would either say, can you please leave me alone, or I would either tell Ms. Ross, but we have a success time here in our classroom that we ask, and our teacher is at the bottom of the list, and we have a problem scale, so it's a 1 through 6. Yes.
That's great. That's great. So one last question for you, and then we'll move on to Tristan for a second. So do you know what you want to do when you grow up?
Oh, I actually want 3 things. I actually want to be a gym teacher, a regular teacher, and I also want to be a craft designer.
Oh.
Create my own outfits and start my own business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's always nice to meet kids that are interested in teaching, because somewhere along the line, they probably had a teacher that made a big difference, right? Somebody that really inspired you.
Yeah.
All right.
Guys,
So,
yeah. I've got to go. We've got to go. I've got to
gotcha.
get my class, and we got recess, and we're going to switch out some other students that are going to come in.
Okay.
So we're going to get out of the way.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And we'll see you again soon.
Bye, Zamai. Thank you. Bye, Mr.
All right. So we'll transition over to Tristan. Tristan, it's nice to meet you. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good.
Good, good. So what have you enjoyed about working with Dr. Laurie and about learning about your brain?
What I've enjoyed about learning with Dr. Laurie is that, if you're mad, you can find a way to help you figure it out. Mm-hmm. You can't just start fighting somebody. You could just say, well, I'm sorry for doing this to you. And you could both do a focus attention practice together. Actually, I went to other classes and actually showed people that I did stuff with my mom to help other kids actually calm themselves down and understand the process of being calm and being near amygdala. So when Ms. Ross is mad or she gets annoyed, I always remind her to take a deep breath
He always reminds me, he'll put his hand on his heart and on his belly, and he'll just look at me, and we'll both do it together. He's great at reminding me to keep myself regulated.
That's great. Well, and that's the way community works, right? We work and support each other, and that's great, Tristan, that you're doing that. How do you know when you're starting to feel kind of a little dysregulated or upset? How do you begin to recognize that you're starting to feel kind of bad?
My blood starts to boil, and like I start to yell.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the person messes with me, I just if the first time that I didn't even know, like the beginning of the year before we met Dr. Laurie, I got angry one time, but then when we met Dr. Laurie, I have changed since then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to, Tristan, I want to add, and I want to say this to you and Iviana. Truly, this year, both of you not only have taken this work to heart, but you take it so deeply that you ask questions I can't answer. And that's what I love about this work. Both of you take it into the real world. And Iviana, you've asked me so many questions, and we'll say, gosh, I'm just not sure about that. We need to study that. And Tristan, you do the same thing. You take it really into your family, and then you're very good at self-reflecting. So I appreciate that from both of you.
So Tristan, tell me about it. Showing, you mentioned sharing these practices with your mom and showing people in your family. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
My uncle, he lived in Texas. I literally went all the way to Texas just to show him another self-assisted practice that I showed my mom. It's like it was like, and then you keep on taking it. It's called firecracker breathing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that helps you to start to feel like your amygdala's on fire, right?
Yeah. What do we do in our amygdala when you feel like you're gonna blow? What's the symbol we give each other?
We do this to tell that we are in our amygdala. We need to take a break and just fix it alone, like almost flipping our leg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So by being able to do that and then do some kind of exercise to help yourself, rather than having things kind of get worse and like maybe you get in more trouble and then even feel worse, you're able to kind of get things settled back down before things get worse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Does it feel good to have some control over not feeling like you're going to lose control?
Yeah, it does, because when I was out to Dr. Laurie in this morning, I also heard that because we in class we were all talking about like what we could remember from the beginning of the year. So we all used our hippocampus to remember back, and that's basically a superpower to actually remember all that stuff from months ago.
So you added the hippocampus in. We've talked about the amygdala and the frontal cortex. What's the hippocampus do?
It helps you remember things, even if you need help to remember them.
That's great. That's great. So let me ask you one more question. We're going to move on to another student, but I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked the others. Any idea what you want to do when you grow up?
Actually, I have 3 things. I wanna be an artist. I wanna own a zoo, and I wanna help homeless people.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, it has been a pleasure, Tristan, to talk to you. Maybe sometime I can see one of your videos of you doing that, doing the practices. It sounds really cool. All right. So thank you so much. So, Laurie, who else do we have joining us here now?
So bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Iviana. Thank you, Tristan.
You guys were great.
So we have Miss Michelle Holmes, and then Mrs. Carly, and we've got 2nd grade. So, okay. Yes.
Okay, great. So Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, and tell us about how you got involved in working with Laurie, and kind of your experience and kind of working with this framework and understanding the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll take my mask off for a little bit.
Sure.
So, I actually worked with Dr. Laurie a few years back when I was teaching in another district. But then she came to Harrison Hill, and she introduced the framework to the staff here, and I was really interested in trying to incorporate that into my classroom. She was looking to work in some other classrooms for the second semester, so they came to me, and that's kind of how we got started here at Harrison Hill, working together.
Fantastic. And would you be so kind as to introduce your student with you?
Yeah, this is Carly.
Hi, Carly. Carly, it's nice to meet you. My name is Guy. So, Carly, what can you tell me about your working with Dr. Laurie? Do you like working with Dr. Laurie?
Yes.
What have you learned working with Dr. Laurie?
I learned that when you're mad, sad, frustrated, and worried, your amygdala starts firing.
And what happens when your amygdala kind of gets upset? Does it make it a little bit harder for you?
Yeah, it makes me stressed out when I'm doing anything.
Yeah, it's hard to do other things when you're feeling stressed out, huh? So what have you learned about helping you to kind of, do focused attention practices and things like that? What have you learned through Dr. Laurie to help you if you feel like your amygdala is beginning to get upset?
I use things Dr. Laurie told us, like the things to help us, like when we're mad, sad, and frustrated.
What are the things? What's something that you like to use to help you?
I like using poppers, and I also like belly breathing and my fingertip taps.
Can you show me one of your favorites?
Okay.
And you're just kind of tracing around your fingers?
Yeah.
And does that help you if you're feeling upset or, frustrated?
Yeah, because one time I felt that I was frustrated because I was doing something that's very hard. Then I used it and it helped me kind of a little bit.
That's great. Yeah, it really, sometimes you need to do something to help you kind of begin to feel calmer again, right?
Yeah.
Have you been able to teach other people, maybe anybody, friends or family or anybody, how to use any of these practices?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think it's helped them too?
Yeah.
Good.
I told my mom some and my brother, because one time my brother was mad and I helped him.
Now, has it helped you maybe at home too if you felt upset?
Yeah.
Good. So I'm going to ask you one last question here, and it's a question I've been asking everybody. I want to know if you have any ideas of what you want to do when you grow up.
I wanna be a cheerleader and a singer.
And a what? I'm sorry.
A cheerleader and a singer.
Oh, very nice. So you like to sing? Good. Well, singing can be another great way to express how you feel and your emotions, right?
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us today, Michelle and Carly. And we're going to move into, I think, our 6th grade.
That's right. Thank you, Carly. Thank you,
Bye, Carly.
Thank you, Miss Holmes. And you know what, Zamai, you might scoot in, honey, just a little because we can't see you very well. So, Guy, I want you to meet, this is Mr. Peterson.
Okay.
And this is Jemiah. This is 6th grade, which I think of as middle school. And yeah, so this is where I am this semester also with Miss Holmes. So take it away, because I know you guys just have a few minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Hey, thanks for having us on. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you.
My name's Casey Peterson. I am a 6th grade teacher here at the most remarkable school on the planet, Harrison Hill Elementary. And I am with one of the most remarkable young ladies that you will ever have the pleasure of hearing from. This is Jemiah. And I'm just going to kind of break down the quick journey that I've had with Laurie. It's been a brief time, but it seems like it's been a long time because I've gained so much information and insight. Laurie came to us just a few months back and said, hey, here's the deal. I've got some things I'd love to share with your class. And the thing that hooked me right away was she said, tell me about your students. And don't just tell me about the good stuff. I want to know the challenges. I want to know strengths. I want to know the things that causes discouragement. And I want to know about them. And as soon as she brought that to a humanistic level for me, I was like, hey, I'm hooked. The fact that you're taking the time to actually want to learn about the children that I spend most of my day with, I was ready to roll. And I told her right off the bat, I said that one of the main things that we want to work on with 6th grade especially, we want to figure out, why is this happening? Why am I feeling a certain way? Because they understand when they're discouraged, they understand when they're angry, they understand when they're frustrated or anxious. They've got the feeling of it. I mean, that's pretty easy to identify. But I wanted them to be able to say, why is this actually happening to me? Why do I feel this way? And I asked my class a couple questions before Dr. Laurie came in the first day. And someone raised their hand. It might have been Jemiah here. And someone said, well, why is it when I get super frustrated or super anxious or angry, why is it suddenly that I get what's called tunnel vision, where I can only see what's in front of me and I can't hear anything? I'm like deaf, like I can't hear the teachers. I can't hear other people trying to direct me in certain ways. And I said, you know what? The same thing has happened to me. And I looked around the classroom. I said, if that's ever happened to you, raise your hand. And I kid you not, I've got 23 kids in class. All 23 hands went up. Not one of them, including myself, understood why that was actually taking place. And I think on a humanistic level, when kids were able to see the fact that a teacher and everybody else had the same feelings, they didn't feel like they were abnormal. In fact, I think that's something that brought attention to everybody in class, that what they're experiencing is normal. It is okay. It's natural. And Dr. Laurie expounded so much information upon why things happen. I think that suddenly the class was more like, oh, well, that makes sense now. I have a better understanding of what's going on when I'm feeling a certain way. And with that, so now that we've labeled it and we understand why it's happening, Dr. Laurie brought in these little pictures of brains. And I was like, what is this? This is like a little cutout. We colored them up. And she said, here's what I want the class to do. Every morning when they arrive, I want them to have this magnet. It's on a side of a spot where they can place magnets. They're going to move the magnets up and down, depending on where they're at. If it's up at the top, everything's going well. And if it's down low, they're having a rough start to the day. And what that does is it makes them understand their regulation. It allows me to see where they're at to start my day so that I can better kind of address certain students that may not be feeling so great. And as we've done that, we do this every single day. As we've done that, the kids are being more aware of what they're actually feeling and seeing. And we've used a ton of different engagement strategies to actually help regulate themselves when they're feeling a little bit off. And I know as a teacher, personally, it also helps me regulate myself when things are going a little chaotic, or there's a fight or a distraction or a discussion that shouldn't be taking place. It's causing me to take more time and thinking about what's actually happening around me. Instead of reacting, I'm being a little more proactive. And instead of trying to assign punishment out of my own frustration or anger, I'm getting to the point where I'm doing a better job with the help of Dr. Laurie, her advice of actually absorbing, taking in, and then reflecting before I decide to take action on whatever the consequence happens to be. And so I'm going to let Jemiah, she's, like I said, not just a remarkable student, but a remarkable person. And I am blessed to have her in class. And she volunteered to come in here today and to be with everyone here. And I'm very proud of her. And she's a smart girl. She's going to give some really good answers. So if you have any questions for our friend Jemiah,
sounds good. Well, and Thank you so much for that introduction. And, I really appreciate you sharing that story about, kind of everything kind of focusing down and I not really hearing. And, because so much of this is not just important for the student to be able to reflect on their own state, but for the educator. And if you as an educator realize that, when somebody gets overwhelmed and they're in a fight or flight response, that they're not working with their frontal cortex, your approach changes. You're no longer, because often what happens is when kids begin to have difficulty and they begin to get escalated, the response is to demand compliance and to, try to provide, instruction. And at that point, if the child's really not listening because they're not communicating with the frontal cortex, we're not going to be effective. So much of this is important for both sides, the educators and the students. So Zamai, welcome. I really, really appreciate you joining us today. My name is Guy, and I just wanted to meet you and hear about what you were doing. And I've been working with Dr. Laurie for some time, who does some really amazing work. So can you tell me what have you liked about working with Dr. Laurie and about learning about your brain and the way your brain works?
Some of the things I love with working with Dr. Laurie is that we learn about why we react a specific way during different times, and we learn about different functions in our brain and why we do certain stuff.
Does it help it make more sense to you? Why when you get upset, you feel a certain way, knowing the way your brain works?
Yes.
And have you found it helpful, learning, focused attention practices, so that if you do feel because when you begin to feel badly, when your amygdala really begins, kind of activated, it really doesn't feel good to feel that way. But, you feel like you want to run, you want to do something, it doesn't feel good. So have you been able to apply some of those practices to help you when you feel like you're getting upset?
Yes, all the time.
Do you have a favorite practice that you've done?
Yeah, the little girl did in here, the 5-finger one. Yeah, that actually works very good with me.
So do you find?
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Jamaya does some things that are regulating that she wasn't even aware that are right. She is a fabulous basketball player, and dribbling, any type of ball playing, sports movement, that's regulating. And so she's learned also, Jamaya, you really like to doodle too. Just like to kind of play with art a little bit, draw, and so, that's something she's discovered, that she does those things and that they can serve her so well when she is, when her nervous system is feeling rough.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's funny how, I think we sometimes evolve different ways of helping to relieve our own stress, and we don't even realize it. But the power of having somebody point out the connection between our brain and our nervous system and the things we do, the fact, and again, school is a place where we have a lot of expectations, and, sometimes we need that movement break, or we need that rhythm, or we need something to kind of help us when we're getting overwhelmed. So, Jamai, tell me about a time where you found that you needed to do something to help yourself to kind of regain your calm.
So when you're feeling tense or anxious or upset, what's something that you do to kind of control the situation, to slow things down?
What I would do is I'll start to draw or doodle or something, or I'll get my fingers and I'll just go. And then I just breathe in and out as I go up and down with my fingers, and it kind of takes my mind off of what I'm upset about or nervous about or scared or something. It kind of takes my mind away from it and gets me into a calmer place.
Have you taught these practices to any of your friends or family? Yeah. And have you found that they've been useful? You like to play basketball, right? So, sometimes we get really, fired up or upset sometimes if the game's not going well. Have you been able to use them in other situations aside from the classroom?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. So, what is the most surprising thing that you learned about your brain? Is there anything that surprised you when you learned it? You were just like, wow.
Yes.
And what was that?
That like fight or flight.
Yeah, isn't it funny how you probably had that fight or flight response before, but once you know that those things are like normal reactions, everybody has them. Everybody has that, and different people respond differently. So you've probably seen that. You've probably seen that in friends or people you knew, people that might get really upset and try to fight, or people that might run away. But isn't it interesting to know how that all happens in your brain? So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll let you both go. So you're in 6th grade?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that wasn't my question. I have one more. Any ideas what you want to do when you grow up and get out of school?
I want to be an entrepreneur or either a doctor.
Ah, so do you have a certain kind of business you would like to have?
No, not yet. I haven't figured it out.
Not yet. Well, there are a lot of opportunities out there. World always needs good ideas, and who knows, maybe something you learn here about your brain can help you as you start a business or go further with your life. So, Zamai, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know it's probably you might have needed to do a focused attention exercise before you came in here because this might have been a little stressful. But I appreciate you doing it, and thank you as well, Mr. Peterson. It sounds I love to hear your excitement. It's so exciting for me to hear a whole team of people here at your school that are excited about doing some great work. So thank you so much.
I appreciate you having us on, and Dr. Laurie, thank you for.
Mr. Peterson, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And Jemiah, thank you. Now don't remind everybody they have cake to eat, the brain cake. I forgot to say it. Go tell everyone there's brain cake.
That's right. That sounds good.
Yeah, you did great, sweetie. I'll see you in this Thursday, Friday this week.
Sounds like a plan. We'll see you soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Hey, thank you so much. So, Laurie, if you want to stick around, you and I can, have a little bit more discussion here. And I don't know if Natalie's still off screen. If she is, I'll bring her back and maybe she can join us as well. But that was really fantastic. Hold on. It looks like she is actually in the class, in the meeting room. Okay, there you go.
You are.
All right. I saw you move in there. Yeah, I saw you move in there. I was trying to make the kids' screen bigger, so I at one point it kind of moved everybody back into the waiting room. So I'm glad you were able to stick around. What an honor to get to meet your staff and your students. You've got some amazing kids there, and again, I said this earlier, but you've got a group of young people that understand more about their brains and about the impact of life and stress. I mean, this is how we raise successful human beings, it is by teaching them these things that they're going to need. I mean, you think about kids as they go along, and the kids that are in middle school or high school now that haven't had this this background have often a lot of unresolved difficulties. And I think that this is a great opportunity to start with elementary school children, to have them develop skills that are really going to help them further in life and may keep them out of situations that would be where this goes if we're not able to learn the skills that are necessary and understand how our brain works. I think that the prospects aren't as good. And so this is amazing work. And thank you for sharing with us your school and your staff and your students.
Thank you. I mean, I think that it just hearing from them and seeing how they've applied this in their everyday lives and in, with their families. I mean, they're going home, they're living this work. And so I think you can hear any adult talk about it, but when you see the impact, it's really extraordinary. So absolutely.
And what an amazing group of kids. I know this was probably a bit of a challenge to do because, wow, it seems a little scary, but they all did an amazing job. I do want to let people know that are watching live now that it's down to the three of us. I didn't want to take questions from the audience during the, while we were talking with the kids, but if anybody out there that's watching has questions for, Dr. Laurie or has questions for Natalie, let us know, and we'd be happy to address those as well. So with that, Laurie, is there anything you want to add to kind of what we were watching there?
Well, it was just so not only enjoyable, but so reflective to sit back and to listen to them, to have Tristan talk about teaching his uncle in Texas. And he means that. Tristan is intense and he takes this work seriously. Every emotion that he experiences is pretty intense. So just to hear Iviana, I didn't even know if Jemiah was going to show up, and she was just fabulous. I know that took a lot. She was just a little undecided. And then, Carly, and then, Zamai, I mean, everyone today, it's almost as if they just told their nervous system stories, and it was a flow, I felt. I mean, I don't feel like they didn't need a script. So I thank the teachers for that. I left Emily and Lori Kirkland in like the 1st of February, and they continue this work. So that's what it takes. That's where it's not just when I'm there, but when I leave, they carry on. And that's what we do for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and unless we can begin to clone you, I think that's what we need to do, right? We need to get this out to classrooms around the country.
We're trying. We're certainly trying.
That's great. And a great point that Beth Tolley just brought up, and Beth is a member here of the Alliance. Beth brought up this point. She said the kids are going to be the change makers, and I think that's absolutely right. The impact that you are both having here on your staff and your students will be something that is felt in a very positive way down the road. So having the school administrators and the kids become really invested in this, I think is going to pay dividends down the road. So let me ask you a question, Natalie, in terms of one of the things that I'm really interested in is how can we get people across the country, schools across the country, districts across the country, adopting some of these better practices. One of the things that I found in working with parents from across the country is that things vary considerably from state to state, from district to district, from school to school. And how can we get people to move past some of the approaches that aren't working? And your team really talked about that as well, about, we keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working. You're doing other things. How do we make that change? Do you have ideas of how we can help to influence a greater change and I think a program like this is a great start, but what can we do to help others, realize that, sometimes the things we were learning 30 years ago, there's better things that we can be doing. So any thoughts on that?
I think it really does take a good hard look at your systems and what are you doing right now. I think Tiasha spoke so brilliantly too. I mean, we had to really look at our entire system of discipline and getting back to, okay, we're seeing the same students, their behaviors really aren't changing. So what is it that we're going to do? And everybody has to really own that. And, when you're getting at belief systems, it doesn't happen overnight. So knowing that you start with those change agents, I mean, the people you saw around the table today, they're ready to run. And people start to notice that, I think starting with a few key people who are really ready to make some change and to do things differently. And you can only spend so much time being on the reactive side for so long, right? That's exhausting for adults as well. And so really looking at things, I mean, we've had to change our entire approach of looking at everything from the prevention side. And I think once you start to do that and you look at how much more time you're going to gain in the end, it really starts to change how you look at things.
Yeah, that's excellent. Excellent advice. And, I think certainly our hope is to, make people aware that there are a lot of great alternatives out there, a lot of great things that we could be doing. But to me, this neuroscience based piece, which, just having that understanding of the brain, having, let's face it, there were things that I've learned along my own road as a parent. And I've got a background in science as well, but Some of this very simple neuroscience never really clicked with me until I really dug deeply into this work. And it's transformative. If you really understand the way our brains work, not only do you understand how your own system is working, but to understand that, when that child is having a difficult time, where they are in their brain, it's so important. So we've got a lot of really positive comments here. Laurie, what else do you want to add in terms of, kind of getting this out there and getting other people, kind of moving in these directions?
Well, so I really feel that it begins with the adults in the building, and I'm learning this. I wouldn't have said that 2 years ago. And that's something that we talked about when we have staff meetings at Harrison Hill. It begins with the adult nervous system. And when I say nervous system, the brain and body state. Mm-hmm. So and it's a paradigm shift. Natalie said that, it's really taking a look at where are we systemically, as far as looking at discipline data, looking at where patterns and gaps have fallen, and are just really taking a nice look at the really the nervous system of the school, because just like we all have dysregulation and regulation, and we move through state regulation, so do buildings. Mm-hmm. And when you have settled adults, you have settled students. And so I would say to schools that it's very important to really focus on the educator or staff brain and body state, and to prioritize that. As an administrator, Natalie's classroom is her staff at Harrison Hill. This is her classroom. And, when she has teachers and she's got staff and, paraprofessionals, anyone office staff who are feeling rough, that has contagion in the school. Kids pick up on that. So we're hoping at Harrison Hill, and we're on our way, is really to create, this is, and I'm going to spend some time, I think, there again next year too, but we want to create a pilot school. I think we're creating pilot classrooms right now, with Lori Kirkland's classroom and Emily's, because I was in there the longest. But we hope to create a pilot school, which we've done in some other districts. But this one, where other teachers can visit, other administrators can come in, talk to Natalie, just to really, don't reinvent the wheel, but really, just look to see what's working well. So those.
And when can we have one of those in each state?
Oh my gosh, that would just,
we need to talk about that.
Oh, that would just be awesome. Let's just do it.
Wouldn't it? So let me just share a couple quick comments, and we'll wrap up here because I want to be mindful of everybody's time. But lots of people with really positive comments, terrific work. Great to see the kids. Let's see. People. Let's see. Really great work. Very nice. Somebody. Let's see. Another person talking about how wonderful this program is. All sorts of really positive comments here about the strategies. Really great to have the kids sharing those strategies and what they're doing. And again, as we wrap up, I want to, thank you, Natalie, for not only letting us do this, but working with the families of the kids to allow us to be able to do this program. Really, if you would, please thank them all for us. This is really could have a lot of impact. So thank you for working with all of your staff and teachers and families.
Opportunity to share.
That's great. So with that, we're just about at time here. Laurie, did you have any final words that you want to add before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to thank everyone today who's watching, and just really encourage everyone to really think about this beautiful, complex time that we have, as we move out of this pandemic, because this pandemic has really opened our eyes to some things that maybe were not working so well, but some ways of being that we can now adopt, and to really think about how we can pay attention in really inclusive ways to our brain and body states, not just from 10 a.m. to 10:30, but to, really think about how we can just immerse this in every aspect of the school day, which is what we're doing right now. So I
That's
just
great.
have a grateful heart.
That's great. Excellent. Natalie, any final thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for the opportunity to let our students shine and share their work. And Dr. Laurie, thank you as always.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Natalie.
Well, thank you both so much. I have a quick announcement to make for everybody else, but I will let you both go. So thank you, and we'll talk to you again soon. So as I mentioned, just a quick announcement here. This is an unusual show for us because we usually do every other Thursday, but this was a great opportunity. So I hope you enjoyed today. We'll mention that our next Facebook Live event, we have Laurie Petro coming to talk about Teach Through Love, helping adults and kids build stronger relationships with conscious communication. So you can probably get, there's a theme running throughout what we do. A lot of it's about connection, about relationship, about moving past compliance-based approaches. We absolutely could be doing better for kids and families and students and teachers and staff. And if we can, we need to. So thank you so much, all of you that have been watching and part of our community. And until next time, we'll see you again soon.